Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Bradburn. Alongside me is Logan Camden. And today, from a top secret location, I'm coming to you all. You've noticed, certainly, I'm not in my normal habitat. Maybe this is disquieting to you. Maybe it makes you nervous. Maybe it makes you uncomfortable. I'm going to ask you to be strong. I'm okay. I'm safe. Logan is holding me captive here, but I'm being relatively well fed. I'm being washed about 7, 8, 9 times a day, which is maybe over the top, but at least I'm staying a nice, clean, hygienic boy. So don't worry about me. This is going to be a normal podcast episode in which we rank the top 10 contenders in the NBA. We did this early on in the season, but it's been a few months since we last checked in, so we got to update these rankings, Logan. And as always, before we get into the list itself, I have to ask, who was the toughest omission for you? Is there anybody you lost some sleep over leaving off that you want to shout out?
Admittedly, not that much. The Warriors were my toughest cut, and I think pretty obviously with the Jimmy Butler news, unfortunately, their season is cooked, barring really anything happening. Like, it's just completely derailing the rest of this season. I don't like any of the candidates that I had for my 10 spot, including the team that I put in my number 10 spot. I don't feel too strongly about them actually being a genuine contender, but the teams that I will shout out that were closest to being on my list, the Toronto Raptors, I think, were my toughest cut. I like a lot of what they do. They've got a ton of size, a ton of defense, and they really fit this new modern style of basketball, man. I think we've seen improvement from R.J. Barrett. I really like we've seen from Jakob Poeltl this year, Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. Like, they've just got a really nice balanced attack. I like a lot of what the Raptors do, but I didn't lose sleep over them. And kind of the same thing with the Phoenix Suns. I think both of these teams have really maxed out. I like what their coaches have done. And I like these teams. They're just not close enough to being genuine, actual contenders. Teams I expect to go on a playoff run, reach their respective conference finals. I just don't really see that on the horizon for either of these teams, that kind of ceiling. And like I said, I don't really feel too strongly about my number 10 team, even though they are very popular, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Like you said, I don't think that there are by any means 10 actual contender caliber teams this year. So even as we get into like the 9 and the 10 spots, already kind of reaching, but you got to fill out 10 spots on the list. My toughest cuts, the Warriors would have been here for me if not for the Jimmy Butler injury. Like, that's just brutal stuff. They're playing really good basketball. They had won 12 of their last 16 before Jimmy got hurt. This year, when Jimmy's on the floor, they're better than a +8 net team. They've been really good, but they've struggled in the minutes without him, and obviously the non-Steph minutes without him are just going to be too tough. But DeAnthony Melton had been emerging. This team was playing well on both sides of the ball. Unfortunately, just not enough talent out there. And also, I was thinking maybe they're a Kuminga trade away from like actually adding even more talent and maybe filling one of these needs they've had on their roster and becoming more of an actual contender. But just not meant to be. Poor Steph Curry, as incredible as he is at 37, clearly cursed in this later stage of his career considering what's going on around him. The Raptors, I agree, they're a good basketball team, but I did have to leave them off. I just worry a little too much about the offense. 19th in offensive rating. I don't think there's quite enough shooting there. I left the Magic off for similar offensive concerns, 18th in offensive rating, and they have not had their normal elite team defense. So they've had some injury stuff, Paolo out earlier in the year, and then Franz out, but we haven't ever seen it really click from that team offensively in a way that would encourage me. That remains the case this year. Paolo's actually having his worst season in years, so I'm good being off of them. My 2 toughest cuts, 2 teams out west. It seems like you're going to have one team on in your 10 spot, so I won't mention them for now. The Suns, I wanted to get on here because I think they have been a consistently, legitimately good basketball team. I think they are incredibly well coached, as we've discussed. I think they are absolutely maxing out their talent, and I think they're somebody that no one really wants to play because of how gritty they are defensively, how sharp their execution is on that side of the ball, how many dogs they have. Like, they've been an uncomfortable draw in the regular season, even for the really good teams. Ultimately, though, I just don't think there's enough offensive upside there for me to have them in my 10 spot. They've been an average offense, and I worry about them maintaining even that, considering how reliant they've been on Dillon Brooks and some shot making that has been a total outlier from him this season compared to the rest of his career. And I wonder if we're starting to see that regression hit already. 3 of his last 4 games, he's gone 2 of 13, 2 of 13, 4 of 16. So I worry about the burden that is on Book in this offense and just not having enough help around him on that side of the ball. And I did feel like the team in my 10 spot, more star power, more offensive punch, more that I could see leading to a playoff series win. I think the Suns are like the definition of the scrappy first round exit this year, which I commend them for because it's a lot more than I expected. But I don't want to disrespect them because of the good season they've been having. I do just see a little bit more potential elsewhere. So with those shout outs being made, Logan, who does wind up in your 10 spot?
I ended up going with the Lakers in my 10 spot. And I know that there's passionate Lakers fans. I know Luka's balling out right now. Like, that's the only reason they made my list. They have a Luka Doncic, and like theoretically, Luka could just burn the face off any team that he plays in a 7-game series, right? The Lakers have that kind of offensive punch with what he can bring, with what Reeves can do. Like, there's something there where maybe a team gets injured and they could win a series or something breaks their way. It's basically out of respect for Luka Doncic. That's kind of my take. I don't like the Lakers. I don't think that they actually have the potential to go to the Western Conference Finals. I think they are too compromised in the defense and the energy and the effort departments, and that has been a problem with the Lakers. That is still a problem with the Lakers. I just don't think it's in the cards for them to compete this season. Obviously, they are set up for success in the future. The Luka Doncic trade was a lifeline for them moving off of Anthony Davis. Like, it's just not right now. And I don't know unless they made a drastic team-altering trade for a perfect player that I just don't think is on the table for them. So, like, this is purely out of respect for Luka. He is playing incredible basketball right now. Like, he's hitting his stride. It's so ironic to me, Carson, the way, like, last basketball episode, it was a while ago now because we've been talking football for so long, but you were like, I don't want to make a negative Luka take because I know the next 15 games he's just going to turn it up. And, like, Luka always does have some of these stretches where he just goes crazy. So I think the Lakers are way too flawed to actually go on a run. I don't think they have enough two-way players that fill out the rest of this roster. Their front court is completely deficient of really impactful defensive players. Like, the Lakers just don't have it. But out of respect for Luka Doncic, I will put them in my 10 spot, that maybe he could drop a 40, 10, and 10 on somebody and cruise in the first round. But I don't think they're legit, just like I don't really think the team in my in my 9 spot is that legit.
Yeah, I agree. My concerns with the Lakers are a little bit too great to have them on this list, though. And look, I've been beating the drum of the Lakers aren't that good. They just don't have the personnel to be like a serious contender all year. So I'm sure everybody's heard it from me countless times now. I will try to keep things brief, but it is the fundamental concerns that you've been talking about. This is a team that is bottom 5 in terms of defensive rating and simply does not have the personnel anywhere on this roster to be anything other than a very bad defense, especially when you look at their big three, who has so much collective offensive talent, but nevertheless not the most complementary offensive big three, and that's why they're a good offense. They're not a top-of-the-line offense. They're 8th in offensive rating. They're a bottom-tier defense because their point-of-attack defense sucks. Their wing defense sucks. DeAndre Ayton is a completely unserious defensive center. Like, just top to bottom, they don't have the athletes. They don't have the mentality. It's just not going to happen. And you can look at this team and you can say, well, they haven't been fully healthy. They haven't had the big three all out there together much this year. And that is true, but as I've said a number of times, I think there are fundamental fit issues with the big three to where having a third star on the floor doesn't actually make them meaningfully better. In fact, if you look at the Luka, LeBron, Reeves minutes, they have a negative 11 net rating this year. And last year, they lost those minutes by a good bit, too, because they're so bad defensively, and there are somewhat diminishing returns on what these guys can all do with the ball in their hands as primary ball handler types when they're all out there together. But it really is more so about the failings of this roster around them and the lack of supporting talent, and specifically the lack of players who can compensate for the limitations of their stars, who can do the dirty work stuff, who can excel in those kind of two-way role player molds. They just don't have those guys. So Luka has been playing better recently, and like you said, that's probably what gives this team the most upside. It's been a rough year for Luka, just with really high turnovers, with the continually diminishing ability to get to the rim, and then he does have, up to this point on the year, the lowest three-point percentage we've ever seen from a player attempting 10 or more threes a game in a season, so he's become increasingly reliant on this super high-volume three-point shooting as, again, he's getting all the way to the rim less and less, although his intermediate shot making has been excellent, and he's been getting to the free throw line a lot. I say all that to say he has not been up to the level of like 2023 Luka when he was at his best, but he has been on a bit more of a heater, knocking down a lot of those step back threes these last couple weeks, keeping turnovers even a little bit lower. So you know what he can do in a series. They'll get Reeves back, but we're 42 games in and like they still have a negative point differential. They're still 17th in net rating. They're still losing the Luka LeBron minutes, like -2 net in those minutes. And I just think there comes a point where people can try to project and they can try to say, oh, well, here's the talent. They have this big three. They're a really good half-court offense. But when they're so bad defensively, when they're a team that loses the turnover margin, when they're a team that badly loses the transition margin, they just do so many things to disadvantage them that their star power can't overcome. And that's why at the end of the day, they're just not very good. There's a reason they haven't been very good at any point since they traded for Luka. The roster just isn't there. And if you look at the historical precedent, since 2015, 19 teams have made the playoffs with a negative point differential, which is what the Lakers are on pace to do now. Again, more than halfway through the season. 18 of those 19 teams lost in the first round. 13 were swept or lost in 5 games in the first round. So overwhelmingly, teams with that simple metric, I mean, literally just a negative point differential, get blown out in the first round of the playoffs. And specifically, if you look at the tougher Western Conference, only 6 teams have made it to the playoffs in that time with a negative point differential. Those 6 teams won a total of 5 playoff games. So I do think there's a lot of the Lakers brand, the star power they have, their outlier success in clutch games that I don't think is sustainable, leading people to be more optimistic about this team than the basketball resume in any way justifies.
I don't want to beat a dead horse. I don't really have a ton of positive things to say about the Lakers. I mean, I think you hit it on the head. Like, if they're going to win a series, I think it's going to be predicated on, again, them making some sort of move that brings in another two-way player, and then maybe they could win a playoff series. But that's kind of the hard cap for the ceiling. Like, there's just not enough there. And like you said, I mean, the historical precedent signifies that if they won 3 games, it'd be an overachievement. Like, the Lakers are cooked. Their ceiling is very, very low. And yet, because they have a Luka, I think there is still a slim chance that maybe they could win a playoff series. But I'm not the biggest fan of them, man. So who's hiding behind that curtain, man? Who's in your 10 spot?
I'll get there in one moment. I do also think you gotta acknowledge some of the issues they've had on both sides of the floor against really athletic teams where they've often gotten their asses kicked, where those teams can target Luka and Reeves defensively repeatedly. And then that sort of physicality has been an issue for them. It's been an issue for Luka against super fast, athletic, physical perimeter defenses. He's had some rougher performances, particularly those elite switching defenses. We saw that dating back to the playoffs against Minnesota last year, or just really, if you look at recent years, he struggled more against those elite switching defenses, try to force him to beat them on an island as a scorer. But specifically for Reeves, I think we have really seen him overwhelmed. We saw it against the Thunder this year. We saw it against the Suns. We saw it on both sides of the ball against Minnesota. So again, this team relies so much on their offense, and the offense isn't great enough for me to buy into that being what's going to drive them in a deep run when they're so bad defensively, and there's just so many weak links on that side of the ball specifically for this team. I think that gets exploited more so in today's NBA than ever before. Reeves, though, having a great season. Excited to see him healthy again. The other reality is LeBron has just diminished. Like, LeBron is not going to take over a series in a way that he could have even a few years ago. So, yeah, for all those reasons, I remain low on the Lakers, and I think we've seen some of these problems coming to light more as they've started to drop more games, even though, again, a lot of the metrics have been very uninspiring with them all year. In my number 10 spot, though, I've got a team that honestly still isn't very inspiring, and that's the challenge here. It's really a shit show. I'd kind of rather have nobody in my 10 spot and just cut off the list at 9 or 8. Go ahead.
Is it Philly?
I've got the Philadelphia 76ers here, Logan. There is just a balance to this team that I prefer compared to the Lakers. Marginally so, but I'm kind of off teams that I think have like glaring fatal weaknesses. And the Lakers defense to me is just absolutely that. You can look at the Sixers and you're like, okay, but they're kind of just above average on both sides of the ball, right? They don't have a punch like what the Lakers' big three can theoretically throw offensively. But I do value that balance, and I do still think they have significant star power offensively. Tyrese Maxey, more than halfway into the season, is still at 30 points, 7 assists per game on 60% true shooting. He's just that good. This guy can carve up just about any defense in the league with his combination of speed, the ridiculous pull-up three-point shooting, all of his phenomenal floater finishing, and what he can do with sheer craft in the lane. Like, he is an elite top 15 level basketball player. And then you look at what they've been able to do with Maxey, Embiid, and PG, their so-called big three, which obviously has not worked out as it was hoped to at all when they signed PG, when they were coming off of much better Embiid seasons. But when those three are on the court together, they have a +8 net rating. They've been a very good basketball team. And part of that is Embiid's game coming together more in recent weeks. He got off to a rough start this year. Literally, first game had that 4-point kind of disaster, and it was like, okay, with how rough last year was, are we going to get anything significant out of Joel Embiid? Is he even going to be a positive for this team when he's on the court? Last 12 games, he's at 28 points per game, 63% true shooting. He's giving you some pretty elite scoring production. Now, he has clearly dropped off significantly from where he was at in 2024, which I actually think was his best season, the year that he got hurt after just playing 39 games. But all of his prime seasons, like, we're not talking about anything close to that from Embiid. And his game is so heavily predicated on jumpers and free throws at this point. And those two components have always been like the foundation of his great scoring arsenal, but he just used to have more quickness. He used to have more driving ability. He used to be a more imposing rim finisher overall. Like in 2024, he was driving 8.5 times a game. Now he's driving 5 times a game. So big drop off there, but he is still a tough cover, man. Like, just the combination of size, shot making, the face-up game, the craft that he does have as a foul drawer. When you can shoot 50% from mid-range at volume and get that shot off at will, and then you can also get to the free throw line 8 to 10 times a game, even when he's only playing like 28 minutes, there is a pretty significant scoring value that he does still bring. So I think Maxey, and even this version of Embiid, like the version of Embiid that we've seen in recent weeks, can do a lot of heavy lifting for the offense. And Philly has a 122 plus offensive rating when those two share the floor. Obviously, Embiid's health is a major concern here. But that's where, when I'm thinking about the contender rankings, again, it's not power rankings. There is an element of projection here in terms of what do we think you look like in a playoff run. And there's an element of valuing upside. When I think about a contender, I think more so about who has the potential to knock off a really good team as opposed to just who has the steadier floor. Because a team like the Suns, their floor has been higher than the Sixers this year because of what they do defensively. And again, they're just so locked in terms of coaching. But the best version of the Sixers to me is better than the best version of the Suns because I really like the group of wings that they have overall. VJ Edgecombe, Kelly Oubre, PG, Quentin Grimes. Like, there's just a fair bit of athleticism there and enough shooting and guys who are capable of attacking off the bounce and speed. Even a guy like Barlow has been decent for them. So I just think there's length here. There's athleticism. There's enough shooting for them to be good on both sides of the ball. They have their really flat out star guard at this point. They have still their star big, and they have a good group of complementary wings around them, guys who contribute at a plus level on both sides of the ball. So it's not that the Sixers are like really moving me. Like, there haven't been any miracles this year. Like, if you were going to say, okay, how would you grade this Embiid season compared to preseason expectations? I would say it's pretty much been par for the course, like basically what I would have expected considering the drop-off we saw last year. He's been better than last year, but not nearly what he was before. There has not been any sort of miraculous comeback from Paul George. He's just the player that he was last year. That's who he is going forward. So you understand all that reality. I just think they're a better team than the Lakers. I think they're a more complete team that, again, doesn't have those sort of fatal flaws that I see with LA.
Yeah, I understand and appreciate this argument. I think it makes sense. Like, they're more complete. They're in the easier conference. I think they've got better depth and defense. I guess the Sixers probably should be in my 10th spot. I just don't believe in Embiid, and I've sold all of my stock in the Sixers doing anything in the playoffs since he went down. Like, I gave up on that idea a long time ago that Embiid was going to be available for a complete series or even the majority of a series. I just don't think that reality exists. Now, that being said, I mean, Maxi's leap really does move me about the Sixers in terms of their potential. It just, I don't know. I think there's a really large, I know he's been on a really good run. Like you mentioned his stats over the last 12 games. But there's such a large discrepancy between what you're talking about with this team and with Embiid individually in their floor-to-ceiling ratio. Like, I think Embiid's floor-to-ceiling ratio is really, like, the disparity is really, really large. And, again, I just don't believe in him being healthy enough to even be available for a series. I actually think it's probably more likely that the Sixers win a playoff series than the Lakers. But I'll stick to my guns. I'll keep the Lakers here in my 10th spot. Like I said, I don't really love either of these teams. But the Sixers should have been in my honorable mentions. That's a good shout. They would probably be my first team off.
Yeah, I do see more upside with them than even a Toronto. I just think the offense is better. I mean, they really have two offensive players who I trust a fair bit more, who I think have much more potency than any offensive player for Toronto. And then I do think the defense has the personnel to be pretty good. So you're absolutely right to not believe in healthy Embiid. Like, you're just probably going to be on the right side of history there. And that's why I don't really have high hopes for the Sixers. But I guess I have a little bit more hope, best case scenario, than this Lakers team, because you can be out on healthy Embiid. That makes a ton of sense. I also think it makes a ton of sense to be out on the 2026 Lakers, just with all of the glaring roster issues they have and the disastrous defense and the fact that the talent just isn't there on this basketball team. I think we've seen their major issues so many times, and I think it honestly only becomes more significant in a playoff setting. So let's move into the 9 spot, Logan. Who you got?
All right, man, we're getting it started with the big brands, Carson. In my 9 spot, I've got the New York Knicks. Knicks fans, I'm sorry. I hate always talking down on you guys every time we talk about your basketball team when it's time, but I just don't believe in the New York Knicks to go on a run. It is the exact same issues that we always talk about with the New York basketball Knicks. This is the fact that you cannot build a great, reliable, consistent defense around Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. It's definitely more around Jalen Brunson, like we've seen it in the on-off data. I honestly think what you can do with Cat at the 4 and with Mitchell Robinson at the 5 in the playoffs is pretty solid, especially in terms of what they can do in protecting the paint, what they do in creating extra chances for this team. You know, the Knicks are number 1 in extra scoring chances per game. That's also, you know, they're just good on the glass. Guys like Josh Hart, too. But they're number 4 in opponent points in the paint per game. Like, I actually think what they can do with Rob and Cat as your front court duo is solid enough. But, again, it's two things. It is the consistency of the defense, how often they can be engaged and give effort, and really what they can do around Jalen Brunson. Like, when you have Jalen Brunson on the court, you can attack him every time in the action, and when you're not attacking Jalen Brunson, you can attack Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't know how many different ways we can say it about this team. Brunson is one of those guys that is a special offensive engine. He is one of the best at creating opportunities every single chance down the floor, if that's for himself or for his teammates, because he is so insistent on getting downhill and getting into the paint, and he's so crafty. I love Brunson. I like a lot of the players for the Knicks. I think their depth has improved. I think Mike Brown has improved their offensive floor with what he does principally. And there are things at Knicks that I like what they do. But again, at the core of this, it is the ceiling of the defense and is the consistency of this defense, and it's them in transition. This is the number 22 transition defense, and I think that they are, at their core, really slow. And when they let go of the rope, their defense looks really, really ugly. And I just can't bet on a team with a defense like this. I don't think – I've been moved, Carson, and you've been banging the drum for one of these teams that is higher than the Knicks. I'm not the highest on this team, but as I watch more and more of this team play, I am moved by them, and I think they have a higher ceiling like what you were talking about with the Philadelphia 76ers. So I think the Knicks have more name brand value. I think they have got that sparkle, right? It's the Big Apple, but I'm not biting it, man. There's a certain team that isn't fully healthy right now that I do think is just unequivocally better defensively. I like their defense more. I like what they do on the glass. I like more what they do in the paint. I like the potential that they could have on the wings. I like their defensive backcourt more, and I like the way they play basketball more. So I always hate being negative about the Knicks, but their roster construction issues haven't changed, and I just fundamentally don't feel any differently about them than I have over the past 2 years with this iteration of their roster, even though Mike Brown, I think, has improved them.
Yeah, I feel like the Knicks and Lakers are almost flip sides of the same coin for me in the sense that like they're two of the biggest brands in basketball, two very optimistic fan bases. They've got star power, but I have been quite low on both of them since before this season. I think you saw both of them go out in pretty ugly ways in the playoffs, even though the Knicks had a much better run. What you saw from them defensively, their Achilles heel being so damning in that Pacers series. Like, I just think with both these teams, they have the hype, but they have the same core insurmountable flaws. When you talk about basically broken teams defensively, like teams that just have such glaring personnel issues on that side of the ball that they cannot work around at the foundation of who they are as a basketball team, right? The Lakers' big three defensively being such an issue, but then also the fact that they don't have the role players around them to compensate. The Knicks' two best players are both very bad defensive players. Jalen Brunson is a catastrophic defensive player, one of the worst in the NBA. But they do at least have better role players around them, and that's where, like, the Lakers are 25th in defensive rating. The Knicks are at least 18th. And I also think the Knicks have consistently been the better offense, and part of that is they do more stuff on the margins. The Lakers have their multiple elite half-court creators, right? But then there are also areas where they do bleed value, not getting out in transition, bad turnover margin, just an okay rebounding team. The Knicks are an elite offensive rebounding team, and they are elite when it comes to preventing turnovers. And you give most of the credit to Jalen Brunson for that. So they are able to create some of that value on the margins offensively, winning the possession game on that side of the ball. They're fourth in offensive rating. They're legitimately elite there. Brunson, I think, has forced us to ask some major questions about what building a great team around him looks like, if it's possible, because he is such a major weak point defensively in an era in which a guy like that is so relentlessly targeted. Like, he's as bad as any defender in the NBA. He truly is. He's extremely physically limited. His effort is poor. And if you look at like any pick and roll coverage you can attempt, anytime that he's brought in to guard a ball screen, it's a disaster. If he does that little weak show, creates a 4-on-3, or allows the screening player to pop for a wide open three, if he switches, he gets attacked relentlessly there. Like, it's just really not a solvable problem to me, especially not when you have a big alongside him and Cat, who is so bad defensively in so many ways. So when Brunson is on the floor, the Knicks have a 120 defensive rating. You're just not doing anything serious with a defense that is that bad when your best player is on the floor. When Brunson and Cat are out there together, 120 defensive rating. Like, you can't solve that problem. It is fundamentally rotten to the core, your basketball team, unfortunately. And that's why I've never gotten high on the Knicks, even as they had some good stretches this season. And now we've seen it all come back to bite them. They're 3-9 in their last 12 games. So it's really about that. The defense being bad in a way that cannot be solved, but also doesn't help Cat's having a down season in every way. And I think it's been an adjustment for him trying to fit into Mike Brown's offense, but he's having a down 3-point shooting season. He's having a down finishing season. And I think a lot of Knicks fans are starting to view him as the problem, and they're being like, we got to move off of this guy. And I think him and Brunson as a duo, like, again, cannot be turned into a title caliber team. But I also think a lot of these issues are really driven by how terrible Brunson is defensively. But again, the two of them together is what makes it so brutal. So I'm just good off the Knicks is what it comes down to. Their offense is too good to have them any lower than this, but we know who they are. We know exactly what's going to cost them. And we know, again, if you have an Achilles heel that puts a hard ceiling on you, I will punish you for that. And I will be an optimist about other teams that maybe don't have the offensive star power, that maybe don't have, the number 4 offense like the Knicks, but they have paths to solving any problem that they may have right now. And they don't have some major, major weakness that, like, I know is going to be their downfall. If you have a path to being a good two-way basketball team, a legitimately good two-way basketball team, I'll take that over a team whose writing I can already see on the wall.
If you're a bad defense, Carson will punish you. That is the moral of the story.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm going to punish a bad defense. Get serious, bro. Playoff basketball. It matters a lot.
Are the Knicks also in your 9 spot?
Yeah, they are in my 9 spot. So we are in sync there, my friend. Who is number 8 for you?
They're growing on me, man. And I've just been moved. I've got the Boston Celtics here in my 8 spot, man. And I know you've been hyping them up. I don't know. A month ago, I may have not even had the Celtics in my top 10, and it's not even Jaylen Brown. Like, obviously, Jaylen Brown is a component in this. I've been impressed by him and where the areas he's improved. I thought that we would maybe see some of his flaws exposed. I've been impressed, but the thing I've been more impressed with is the Celtics when Jaylen Brown doesn't perform. Like, some of these down games where Jaylen Brown is maybe turning a rock over or not hitting his jumpers, like, just been impressed by the other Celtics. Like, I know Derek White hasn't been as great because of his shot quality, but like what he brings to this team defensively every night, having a really talented offensive guards in Peyton Pritchard, Ant Simons, actually like guys being playable in their front court. I thought we were going to see a drop-off significantly from them losing a guy like Luke Cornett and not having playable centers. And Keita and Garza have been awesome on the glass. Like, the Celtics are just, like, to put it simple, like, the Celtics are just way better than I thought they were going to be without Jason Tatum. I thought this team was going to really suffer. Like, I thought we were going to see them lose 20 more games than they won last year, even in a diluted East. But shout out Joe Mazzulla. Shout out his principles. Shout out the collective shooting of this basketball team, the collective buy-in in defense, their paint defense, their rebounding. I fuck with Joe Mazzulla, man. Like, the Celtics are just tough, and I really like the identity that he's a little weird, man. But, like, I'll take his weird ass, man. The guy knows how to coach a basketball team. The collective buy-in and talent of this team, and also shout out Brad Stevens in this too for like just the pivoting that this team did in this offseason to be where they're at. Yeah. Like, they were old, they were kind of dead in the water. The old iteration of this Celtics team was dead, and that's a tough decision to make, man. To be so close, you feel like, and to be really dug in with what your team is with Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Like, I think it is a testament to this organization and their competence that guys like Brad Stevens have the wherewithal and like the knowledge to know, all right, we got to make big swings, and they paid off. It was a big risk in the offseason. I thought they were going to suffer because of it, but Stevens is a genius. I think Joe Mazzulla is a beast, and the Celtics are just a lot better in summation than I thought. And the potential that Jason Tatum could maybe come back later in this season, that's a big deal. You know, and I'm not super optimistic that he's going to come back and be the player that he was, but there is a potential that. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying with the Sixers, where there is a higher ceiling that you see with this team because of what they could be with Jason Tatum and a fully locked-in Jaylen Brown and their supporting cast. And that supporting cast is just way better than I thought they were going to be. So I like the Celtics floor a lot more than the Knicks or the Lakers. But also in saying that, I like their ceiling more. So I've just been moved, man. I am really bought in to the Celtics. Obviously not as one of my top 5 teams, but I really think they belong in the top 10.
You're not bought in enough, my friend. You've still been too slow to the hype train with the Celtics. I could not really be more all in on the healthy Boston Celtics. I have them at number 6. That's me being super conservative because I think Jason Tatum's coming back. Like, I would be shocked if he didn't at this point. He just worked out in front of media. Like, there's no chance he does that. He's not going to make a public display of, hey, look how good I look. Look how healthy I am. Look how close I am. If he doesn't intend to come back this season, which I think has been his intent the entire time. Again, it's the job of the Celtics medical staff to make sure that he doesn't go out there until he's fully ready to go, and they should take all the necessary precautions. But I just think we are clearly seeing him on the trajectory to return this season. And if he were at his normal level for the Celtics come playoff time, they would be my number 3 contender. They would be my top contender by far in the Eastern Conference. Without Tatum even playing a minute this season, they're number 2 in net rating, man. So to me, putting them at number 6 is the compromise of not knowing what Tatum we're going to get. I can't just sit here right now and put them at number 3 when it's still not a certainty that Tatum returns. Certainly not a certainty that he looks like 2025 Jason Tatum the second he gets out there. But Boston has already been so impressive. I can't have them lower than this. This offense is just flat out so elite. They're second in offensive rating, and like that is totally legitimate to me. They have more pick and roll ball handlers with Pritchard having a career season with Ant Simons on this team. Their shooting is as elite as ever, like the combination of lethal pull-up shooters they have, the elite catch and shoot guys they have. They're an elite offensive rebounding team, and I think you credit the bigs for that, but I also think you credit some of the wings and forwards who are just like crashing the glass at such a high level, and some of the dudes who they have just found and gotten the most out of. Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez. You mentioned Keita and how good he's been. There's just so much about this team that has blown me away and completely overachieved my expectations. The depth overall is so much better than I expected. And you bring Jason Tatum back to this team, I don't know that their bottom line offensive efficiency improves at all, because like it barely can. Again, they already have a lot of creation. They have a lot of shooting. They keep turnovers low. They get offensive rebounds. They do so many things so well offensively. But what I do think Tatum provides them is a level of stability and just a level of confidence that I have when it's like your best player is back out there on the floor, and maybe a bit of a stylistic change back to more of like that classic Tatum and Brown kind of mismatch attacking stuff. Tatum definitely running a lot of pick and roll and being more of like the lead ball handler playmaker for this team, where those responsibilities have been more distributed. But I think overall they have an opportunity to have the most balanced offense they've had. They have more perimeter creation than ever before. And so there's really not going to be much on Tatum's plate. Like to some extent, I think he can kind of try to fit in here, but then step up as the lead guy, do some Jason Tatum stuff. And when he's out there, I just feel most confident in them kind of regardless of matchup. But the really big thing is what he does for this defense. Like, I think they improve so much on that side of the ball with Tatum in. What he does for them as a elite defensive rebounder, they need his help there. What he does just as a big switchable forward, I think they become a top 10 defense with him on the floor. The fact that they're 14th in defensive rating as is without him, like, again, all of this stuff is just so much better than I would have expected. I legitimately think they could definitely win the East without Tatum. They wouldn't be my pick to do it, but I don't know how you can discount the possibility at this point. Like, they have consistently had the best offense in the conference. They have a solid defense, but then you drop Tatum in there, and now I think they become clear favorites. I think clearly there is nobody in this conference who has proven that they can match that level of offensive explosiveness with that level of like actual high-level defense. And if they trade for a solid center, Logan, and I mention that because I think the Celtics should be aggressive at the deadline. I think they're probably going to be aggressive, and they don't have to do much. They just have to get somebody who's better than Luka Garza, somebody who can like split minutes with Keita, or maybe even be better than Keita. That would be ideal. Then I think that margin just grows even more, because that's still the one spot I look at, center, and I'm like, yeah, they could obviously stand to gain some talent. But even the production they've gotten out of that position is much better than I expected. So I just want the record to show I am all in on the maxed out Celtics, like all in. Tatum back. If they make a trade for a center, boom. It wouldn't even be close for me who is my favorite in the East. Right now, this is where I'm comfortable.
Cleveland Cavaliers enjoyer Carson Breber switches up?
Hold on. Let me say.
No,
I'm not.
No. Here's
Cavs.
my.
I've been more loyal to the Cavs
I
than
know.
anybody outside of
I
Cleveland.
want to ask you a question. Barring a
go
trade, Tatum comes back, looks like he did. Would that put them over the Cavs on site for you too?
Absolutely.
I just know you're a Cavs advocate, man. You're the Cavs advocate.
We'll get there. I'm the Cadvocate for sure. And I've got a lot of optimism about things looking better than they have for Cleveland. At the same time, end to end this year so far, the Celtics have been a better team than the Cavaliers, and Jason Tatum hasn't played a minute. Like, I think there's a lot that can get better with Cleveland, and I think they've had some very bad luck in a number of ways, and just like I expect things to turn around for them for a number of reasons. But also, they have played a fair bit of shitty basketball of their own doing for which they're responsible. The Celtics lost their best player among all the other losses they had this offseason, and they've been an elite basketball team. Like, yeah, I just think you have to give them their just due. I think Mazzulla is brilliant. Goat Zula, bro. He is probably the best coach in the NBA right now. I think he's making an incredibly strong case with what he's done this season. And I think the talent offensively is so good. And Tatum does so much for this defense. Yeah, It wouldn't be close, honestly. Like, I would confidently pick the Celtics with Tatum on the floor to win the East.
We should watch the town.
Which is incredible because this was supposed to be the bridge season. This was supposed to be the down season. Like, maybe even, hey, can we get in on this super strong draft class with a top 10 pick and replenish like that? And instead, it's like, oh, wow, we are Jason Tatum coming back away from being the favorite again, and now like we should probably be buyers at the deadline so we can max out our chances to win the East. Props to the Celtics, dude. What an organization. What a season. Regardless of what happens from this point out, what a season for them. Completely blown away all the preseason projections. So I am drinking that Boston Kool-Aid for sure, which I guess would be Guinness maybe. I don't know what Boston Kool-Aid is.
Tea.
In my number 8 spot, T. Yeah, that's a good shout out, Logan. Maybe if we're in the late 1700s. I've got the Detroit Pistons, a team that has had an excellent regular season. Yeah. Are you disappointed, Logan? Are you hurt? I don't mean to disrespect the Pistons.
I am a Detroit Pistons enjoyer.
I'm a Detroit Pistons enjoyer too, but I also am a skeptic when it comes to some of the flaws they have when you look at their ability to make a deep playoff run. I want to give props first to why this team is 32-10 and number 3 in net rating and number 1 in the Eastern Conference. They're an amazing defense, second in defensive rating, leading the league in both steals and blocks per game. They just have a shit ton of athletes on that side of the ball, a shit ton of dogs, and they really, really excel there. They are as physical as any team in the league. You feel that on both sides of the ball. Jalen Duren, like that's just one of the most physical tone setters in basketball right now and one of the best offensive rebounders. And they're number 2 in offensive rebound percentage. So when it comes to creating margin with defense and athleticism and rebounding, they're as good as anybody in basketball. My concern is the half-court offense, which is what it's been dating back to preseason. They're a 33rd percentile half-court offense. That is a huge red flag to me. I think it is essential that you are at least a good half-court offense if you want to make a deep playoff run. You can look at the Thunder last year. They were an elite half-court offense in the regular season. They were just a solid half-court offense in the playoffs, but they were like one of a kind in terms of having actual GOAT-level defense, unparalleled transition margin, unparalleled turnover margin. They had to create so much margin in these other ways to win the title while being a solid half-court offense that had proven they could be an elite half-court offense in the regular season. I look at the Pistons and I'm like, you are still in the bottom third of the NBA in terms of half-court offense. It's incredibly difficult to make a deep playoff run with that formula. We've seen it bite teams time and again who can scrape their way through what they do defensively and athletically and on the glass and through effort in the regular season. And then you run into the playoff basketball reality where defenses are fully keyed in, where maybe pace slows down a little bit, and it's just tougher to win that way. I worry about the lack of shooting here. They're 26th in threes made. They're 19th in three-point percentage. And as I've said many times over, Cade is great. What Cade is doing this season is very impressive, and he has a huge offensive load on his plate that he handles quite well, but Cade is not perfect. And I highlight that because for me to be confident in this Pistons team making a deep playoff run, I would need to believe they have like somebody who is truly exceptional as an offensive engine, somebody who can truly elevate this very flawed defensive-oriented supporting cast to still being like quite a good half-court offense. Cade, to me, with some of his limitations as a scorer, still is not up there. Still shooting 58% inside of 5 feet, struggles to finish at the basket efficiently, still shooting under 33% from deep. So again, those two places from which a guard can manufacture self-created, efficient offense at the rim beyond the arc, he has struggled. The turnover problem has been less of a concern this year, but still 3.8 turnovers a game. So again, it's a combination of them having very limited creation and shooting around him, just like lots of defensive-minded, offensively limited guys here. And they have the faith that Cade can elevate those guys. I just worry when you get to a playoff series, the spacing around him is going to be restrictive. I think there is going to be so much aggressive gap help that he's seeing, and he can live off those intermediate shots to get to like a certain level, but I'm not saying it's going to be like it was against the Knicks last year. That was the extreme version of big turnover numbers, big finishing problems, big three-point shooting problems. He did excel in the intermediate range, and it still was not enough to lead to good offense for the team. And I still think, although the Pistons are definitely a better team than they were last year, I have a lot of those same fundamental concerns. And I just don't know that there's an answer on this roster. Jaden Ivey is the guy who I looked at preseason and who I looked at when he was injured early in the season. And I was like, hey, when he comes back out there, is he going to be the second creator that can bring this team a little bit more offensive juice? It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Like, since he came back from injury, he's been getting limited minutes. He's often playing with LeVert, which isn't working, that sort of dual ball handler look in the non-Cade minutes. He's playing off ball way more than ever before. Like, his pick and roll usage is way down. It seems to me, and I don't want to overreact to this stretch in which he's come back from an injury, but it seems like Bickerstaff is not a believer because they're just giving Ivy less and less opportunity. And I understand some of the defensive issues he's had, like, that have been very significant. And that's why Amani Williams often didn't want to play Jaden Ivey. And he's had his shooting inconsistencies. Previous years, he's had his turnover issues. But I do think to go deep in the playoffs, this team needs a little more offensive juice. And Ivy is the guy you look at to bring that in potentially. I think they can sacrifice a little bit of defense and take the ball out of Cade's hands a little bit more just to give him a release valve and give this team more offensive punch overall. So, Logan, I want you to tell me why you're higher on the Pistons in a second, but I do want to end on a note of praise for them because as much as I can say, I'm concerned about how much is on Cade's plate, I'm concerned about the half-court offense. In the last two games Detroit has played against good teams, Cade went 3 of 17, Cade went 4 of 16, and they won them both. Like, they were able to grind out close, low-scoring games behind their defense. They're 5-1 without Cade this year, mostly been against shitty teams, but in all their minutes without him, they have a +4 net rating. So I don't want to undersell how great this defense is. I just think there's no question they can win a ton of regular season games. The question more so is, how does it translate to the playoffs, and do some of those significant offensive weak points come back to bite you? And I'm just a little more concerned about that than maybe the average person.
I think they have better answers in-house, but JB Bickerstaff is an idiot. I think Bickerstaff is a good defensive coach, but I don't think he understands his guard personnel. Dennis Jenkins, to me, is the solution. I'm not saying that as a joke. I would play Dennis Jenkins, I would play Duncan Robinson big minutes, and I wouldn't play Karis LeVert at all. And if you are going to play Jaden Ivey, I would play Jaden Ivey with the intention to put the ball in his hands off the bench. I'm out on Karis LeVert. I think that I don't get it. On average this year, Dennis Jenkins is getting 16 minutes per game. Karis is getting 20. Jaden is getting 17. I think he is this team's unequivocal best second guard. He does all the little stuff. He plays hard defensively. He's a good shooter. Like, don't get me wrong. He's not a superstar, but he is a really solid role player, and I don't get why Bickerstaff doesn't give him more burn. I think he is the guy in-house. Carson, I completely agree with you. The potentially fatal flaw with this team is their shooting, their lack of creation around Cade. And if this team wants a chance to go to the finals or go to the Eastern Conference Finals, they need to make a move that will eliminate Karis LeVert minutes and that it is a real guy that you can put the ball in his hands and reliably create with. If it's right, like on the extreme version before the season when we thought the Suns were going to blow it up, we suggested a Devin Booker. I'm seeing rumors now that an ideal fit, right, would be like a Kyrie Irving, that archetype. I'm not saying that the Pistons have even the firepower to go out and acquire these guys, but those are the kind of archetypes that you would want to target. I don't know if they have the assets to go and acquire a guy like that, but I do think they have the personnel in-house to at least be better. I don't like Karis LeVert. I think the guy stinks. I think that he just doesn't bring enough to the table when his shot isn't going in. Jenkins on, LeVert off, they are nearly 6 points better offensively. Defensively, they are 3 points better. Like, I just think Jenkins does more of the little stuff that I like, and I would eliminate his minutes. Like, when it comes playoff time, LeVert isn't getting burned for me. Ivy might not get burned for me. Like, I am leaning heavy on Duncan Robinson and Jenkins as my two guards off the bench alongside Cade. I do think they need to address that at the deadline if they can. Another legitimate ball handler and creator, a guy who can manufacture shots better than an Ivy or a LeVert, but I believe in this defense, man. I look at these Pistons like the bad boys. They are big, they are nasty, they are physical, they are intimidating. They're going to eat your lunch, man. I think they are scary. Like, I just like that physical, intimidating presence that they bring to the table every night, man. Jalen Duren, Paul Reed, B. Stu, Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, man. These are junkyard dogs. Like, I just think that floor, that kind of intimidation that they bring every single night, I don't think you want to play the Pistons in the playoffs, man, because they go bring it and they are going to beat you down. Like, I just think the physicality that they can play with over a 7-game series, if that goes deep, dude, they are draining you. You are going to be dead by the end of that series. Like, I just love that kind of physicality. And I'm not saying this team doesn't have flaws, but I like their identity. I like what they bring to the table. And if Bickerstaff can push the right buttons, I think this team can be a little bit better offensively. But I do agree with your fundamental flaw. That being said, I disagree with your placement. I have them at number 5 on my list, man. I just think this defense is so reliably great night to night, man. Beef Stew is holding guys nearly 16% below their average inside 6 feet. That's the second best mark of any qualified center in basketball. He's sandwiched between Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren there. They are number 3 in opponent points in the paint per game, while they are number 2 in points in the paint per game themselves. They're second in extra scoring chances per game. Like, I just love how hard the Pistons play every night. They bring it. I ain't got to worry about effort and energy and defense and physicality, and I like that recipe for the playoffs. I really like the Pistons, man, and I don't mean to call Bickerstaff an idiot because I don't think he is. I think he's a really good defensive coach, but I still don't think he's playing the right players this year, and it's frustrating when I watch Pistons games.
Yeah, I understand, and you've been making that point that you think Jenkins should be playing more than LeVert, and I honestly agree, but I still don't think it's the solution for this team, and, like, I don't know that you can not be concerned about the lack of production they've gotten out of Ivy. Maybe it just fundamentally comes down to a difference in terms of, like, how concerned we are about the half-court offense for this team, because I think it's, like, a major red flag. I think it's honestly the biggest red flag a playoff team can have, and I'm not going to call it a fatal flaw like the Lakers defense or the Knicks defense, because I don't think it's that, but I do think we've seen a number of teams over the years, if it's the 2025 Rockets, if it's honestly a couple of the Magic teams that we've seen in recent years, if it's the 2023 Grizzlies, right? These young, deep, athletic, really good defensive teams, top of the line defensively, right? Top 3-4 teams in terms of defensive rating, bottom third half-court offenses, they've always gotten bounced in the first round. Now, I don't mean to say the Pistons are those teams because they're better. And the other difference I would say is they have a Cade, and Cade is clearly a better half-court creator than the best guy on any of those teams that I've mentioned. And that's why I'm not writing off the potential of the Pistons, especially in this East. I mean, they could win the East. Let me be clear about that. But I think that says a whole lot about the state of the East, and not so much about the Pistons being like some bona fide contender where it's like, oh, they're as good as a Denver, for example. If you're looking at the biggest threats to OKC, like, no, there's a big tier gap between those two teams, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't want to discount what they're doing. I do think it is a better regular season formula by a sizable margin than a playoff formula when you're going up against teams that, again, are like fully keyed in on any potential vulnerabilities you have, and you have multiple very limited offensive players and non-shooters, and yeah, there's just a lot that you can exploit around Cade in this offense. And is Cade great enough to overcome that? Personally, I think there's still a couple flaws in his offensive game that make me more hesitant to say that.
I completely agree with all you basically just said. I just want to add this. I think that I really like the built-in floor that the Pistons have every single game. I think that there is a possibility that every game in the first round, it could just come down to clutch time execution. But that's one of the things that I like about the Pistons is I just feel like they are a team that is going to fight and scrap and claw and keep it close. And they're never going to get ran out of the building or something like that. They're going to be competitive. They're going to fight, and games are going to be close. They could get bounced in the first round because in clutch time, their half-court offense falters. I completely see that, but I also think there's a chance that they could smack a team in the mouth and just run them out of the court in the first round. And maybe Cade, I do like Cade as a late game guy more than I do some of these other teams that you're mentioning, though. I do want to add that. Like, I think that's
totally
a great
agree.
point to add in comparison to those other teams. I really do like Cade as a lead guy, and I think he's he's improved as a decision maker and taking care of the ball this year. And Detroit's going to keep it close, and I really like Detroit's recipe, man. I think they are a real threat to win the East, and as it stands right now, even though they are number 5, they are my number 1 team in the East.
I think Cade has always been a really good decision maker. My criticisms of him really do come down to skill set when it comes to the rim finishing issues and the pull-up three-point shooting issues. But I think that's enough on the Pistons. I do agree with you. I mean, I think Cade has been really good in the clutch this year, and their clutch defense has been insane. They've been the number 1 clutch defense in basketball. Like, they are nasty. They are really hard to score on. There is no denying that, and it's made them such a great team this year. In my 7 spot, though, Logan, I've got a team in the Central Division that has not played as well as the Pistons this year, and maybe Detroit fans will be pissed that I do give them this spot. I have the Cavs at number 7. Where do you have the Cavs?
I'm kind of pressed, too. I just don't think the Cavs have shown it to us. I have the Pistons 1 spot ahead of Cleveland. I have the Pistons at 5, Cleveland at 6.
Whoa! How did you wind up being higher on the Cavs than me, Logan Camden, after all the drum I've beat for them?
I will say,
talk to me.
One of these teams, I think, has a more significant flaw that we were higher on during the earlier this season. 2, a component of it certainly is the weak East.
Yeah. Well, I have been hopeful that we would see a version of the Cavs that was closer to what we got last year. And coming into the year, I thought they were the clear favorite in the East, and I have maintain that they're a top 2 favorite in the East for me, even as, they've got this lackluster record. They're only 5 games above 500. I do think they're improving. With Garland back in form, this offense is looking flat out elite. Again, Garland's last 13 games, he's giving you 19 and 7 on 63% true shooting, and the Cavs have an 8-5 record in those games. When you pair that with Donovan Mitchell playing his best basketball yet this season, I think some of the criticism that he has gotten, some of the flack he's gotten is just like totally misplaced. The Cavs have had a lot of shortcomings this year, but Donovan Mitchell has done so much to carry this team in spite of that. Their offense is like 14 points better with him on the floor in terms of offensive rating, and he's giving you 29 a game on over 58% on twos, 38% on threes. He's been phenomenal. Those two together make for an insane pick and roll guard duo who can create so much dribble penetration and are so efficient and productive as scorers, creating for themselves and create a lot for others. And then you look at some of the stuff around them. Jalen Tyson, Logan, just flat out awesome. I love the guy. He's a Cal Bear. I love the pick when they made it. But if you look at the last few weeks for him in particular, really the last month actually completely, last 15 games, 15 points per game from this guy, shooting over 46% from 3. He does all the role player stuff. I mean, he'll take high difficulty defensive assignments. He's got solid feel as a passer. He rebounds the ball well. He can put it on the floor. He's got good footwork and craft as a driver, but he also is just shooting the shit out of it. So he's a major addition to this team. I mean, he was on the roster last year, but he wasn't playing. Max Strus, still yet to come back. This situation has lingered throughout the regular season, but I do think he's a really good offensive role player for them when he is healthy. And then, again, there were some things early in the year that were going for the Cavs that I was like, this just can't possibly be sustained. Like, this is an elite 3-point shooting team that had some crazy bad shooting luck early in the year. Now, last 15 games, they're second in 3-point percentage. So they're getting back to their normal elite 3-point shooting, and that's where I think they have a very clear formula to be an elite offense with this crazy pick and roll guard duo who can really shred anybody, with really good shooting around them, with good play finishing bigs and bigs who can pass, and just kind of like a high feel offense overall. I love them on that side of the ball when they're healthy. And then they've got a good defense. That's the potential this team has on that side of the ball. Great top end talent with like 3 clear star level players and pretty good depth. When they're fully healthy, you get Strus back out there. I still prefer that formula to a lot of the alternatives out east, especially because I value that offensive upside so significantly. And I just think like what they can do on that side of the ball far surpasses what you can get out of a Detroit. And Detroit is clearly a better defensive team, but I think the Cavs can be a better defense than they've shown us this year, because if you look at, the last 4 seasons before this, they were a top 8 defense every year. This year, they're down at 15th in defensive rating, so they have to be better there. And this is where part of what's been so uninspiring about this team is just like not great effort and focus night after night. And you feel like a lot of guys just aren't playing their best. They aren't playing up to their potential. But I'm going to bank on some of that potential coming through for this team down the stretch. That being said, although I am a Cavs optimist comparatively, and I've held on to a lot of my stock with this team, I have still lost like a lot of confidence in them compared to where I was at preseason when I was like, yeah, the Cavs should just clearly be the best team in the East, because some of this stuff has been actually concerning. Like Lonzo, I thought that was a great low risk, high-ish reward kind of move, because I was like, there's a world in which, okay, Garland's having a brutal series defensively. You're like, hey, let's close more with Lonzo. And he's a connective playmaker, and he's knocking down his catch-and-shoot threes, and he's a great defender. His shooting has just consistently been atrocious this year. And that's all he has as a scorer. So it's been tough to, like, find minutes for him. And you always think that could turn around. He could shoot better down the stretch, but he has not been as impactful in addition as I hoped. And I'm just kind of losing hope on the best case scenario there. Evan Mobley, who I thought could like continue to progress this year, maybe take a leap, just hasn't. He's actually had a noticeably worse shooting season. Like if you look at threes and free throws, and just hasn't looked quite as comfortable offensively, particularly in those jump shooting situations. So he hasn't been quite the same. And then Jared Allen has just gotten a little worse in a lot of ways. I think like his rebounding production is down per possession. His touch shot making has regressed in a huge way. And it's really significant. Like you watch Cavs games, and last year, Jared Allen was like automatic on hook shots and like short range push shots, floaters, 59% in the paint outside the restricted area last year. This year, 41%. He has gone from straight up elite to like thoroughly mediocre for a big. And I think he's just regressed a bit as a rim protector. So with his uninspiring play and the fact I think long-term this team would be best with Mobley at the 5, I've previously held the position of like, yeah, I'd like to see Mobley at the 5 full time. I don't love Jared Allen, but also he's on a pretty good value contract. He's a quality big, and like with him out there, with him on your team, you have the ability to have 48 minutes of like really good big play when you stagger him and Mobley, and that's a valuable thing that you can't just take for granted. But I have come closer to the position of, okay, just move Jared Allen, and I am also closer to the position of move Darius Garland. Like Garland, we need to see this season play out because his offense is so dynamic when he's right, but the defense is such a problem. And he started this year like just clearly impacted still by his lingering foot injury. So I don't know. Again, we need to see how this stuff balances out over the course of the year, but the injury problems have persisted. He's one of the worst defenders in the league, honestly, and they've been way better with him off the court this year. They're +8 when he's off. They're -2 when he's on. So ironically, this is the spot that we were in after the 2024 season with the Cavs. We were like, I just think they would be better off building around a core of Mitchell, Mobley, and a shit ton of good wings around them, right? That's probably how you build the best team defense, because you don't have to worry about compensating for Garland, and you can still be an elite offense in that configuration with Mitchell as your lead ball handler with a lot of shooting that you can max out when you're only playing one big in your core lineup with Mobley at the 5. Like that was the vision then. And then last year they were so good. I was like, no, they can make it work, or at least let's give them another year to see if they can make it work with all these 4. And I still think they're going to run this experiment through the end of this season. But I have come back around, unfortunately, being closer to, yeah, they probably should break things up and focus on building around Mitchell and Mobley. But we'll see. They're so talented. I think they got to ride it out this year, get healthy. And if they pick up momentum late in the year, and if they get Garland fully to 100%, they can make a run. But if it doesn't get a lot better, then I think you do get to the place where like they probably are going to blow things up and build around Mobley and Mitchell.
Thank God they found Jalen Tyson, man. You got to shout your boy out. He should be starting on this team.
Well, he has started a lot this year.
I'm saying, like, I think
he's not going to start when they're fully healthy.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, moving forward, and, like, even with, like, I think he might be the best wing on this team, man. Like, I think he's better than Dre, better than Strus, better than, like, I don't know, anybody else they can throw out there, man. And, like, that's where I'm at, man. I see it with the Cavs, but, like, I think we've seen this story enough times to where, like, I think it's time to just look in the mirror. And, like, the defensive backcourt is my biggest hang-up with the Cavs still. Just worrying about Garland and Mitchell being picked on, even though the offense really is potent. And I still think they have good depth. Like, I agree with you, man. There is definitely a world in which the Cavs can win the East. Just like I do see some weak points. Again, the defensive backcourt, Allen's regression. I would just trade Jared Allen and let Mobley run the 5 full time. I think the game is just, you can survive, I think. I think you need a big 4, but I think you can find the guy like that can complement Mobley there a lot easier. And I think you can find a suitor for Jared Allen.
Yeah.
He's just good. Like the Lakers. I think Jared Allen would be a good fit on like a team like LA. I think they could use a big man like him. I don't know what you're getting back, but I think a lot of teams would be interested if you did go to move Allen or Darius Garland. They're very talented, but it's not the right fit with this team. And ultimately, with my concerns with the defensive backcourt, with my concerns with injuries, and then just what they've put on tape, I just think the Pistons have been playing better basketball. Like I don't.
No,
I mean, like I am just waiting to see it. I need the Cavs to put together a stretch of basketball that build some faith with this team, and I haven't seen it yet. They're not fully healthy. I will still give them that grace. That being said, they haven't really put anything out there to really instill that confidence in me. So they are going to wind up in my 7th spot. I think that's a good roadmap, or in my 6th spot, excuse me. I think that's a good roadmap, Carson. I think you got to take a hard look in the mirror if the Cavs don't make a run this year.
Yeah, especially with the opportunity that there is in the East and the preseason expectations they had. And you just don't want to feel like you're regressing as much as they were from last year. But you do look at the personnel and it's like, okay, Ty Jerome is gone, but we found something in Jalen Tyson, right? So in that way, we've added talent to this roster. And that's their path to making a run. It's like this offense looking like what it did last year, where they had a top 10 relative offense in the play-by-play era. They were an amazing offense last year. And then can they get back to being a top 10 defense? Which again, even with their flaws, even with Garland being a weak point, they've been able to do. We'll see if they can have it all come together. I do think they've been playing better as of late, but I don't know if anybody this year has had more just like what the fuck kind of performances than the Cavs. I mean, they had a brutal stretch in early December where they just had some really bad losses. So things are trending upwards, but yeah, it's tough to overlook. Since last year, when Mitchell is on with Garland off, that's when they're best. They're a plus 11 net team. They have a 110 defensive rating in those minutes. They're actually a very good defense, and they're an elite offense. They're a 122 offensive rating kind of team. So I think we are seeing things trend in that direction of, like you're saying, the fit probably just not being right with the big 4. But man, there's still a lot of talent here. Still a lot of talent. And honestly, I agree with you on the Tyson point because I think Strus is the better offensive player because he's such a movement shooting weapon and he's a better playmaker than Tyson. But Tyson's also a great shooter. Tyson's also got pretty good playmaking feel. And then in terms of what he brings you, like defensively, on the rebounds, I mean, he's a great offensive rebounding wing. Like, he's just a winning basketball player. And then, yeah, I agree with you. I don't really like DeAndre Hunter very much. I mean, he's had a down 3-point shooting season. I just think
that's
like
his
he's
appeal, man.
Very low IQ offensively. Yeah, like there are just other dudes who connect this offense much better. And Tyson's one of those guys. I think Tyson's the most complete wing they have. I like Dean Wade, but his shooting's inconsistent. Merrill is a hell of a shooter, but super small and limited defensively. So yeah, I'm all in on the Jalen Tyson hype train, dude. I think he's the fucking man. And his brother, Jordan Tyson, ASU legend, a Cal ASU family, Logan. I love the Tysons, and I'm very happy that they both exist and are thriving. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5.
With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. And with Prize Picks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. Prize Picks lets you play fantasy football every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week, no draft required.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code NERDSESH to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code NERDSESH to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Who is in your 7 spot, Logan? That's where I have Cleveland. You have them 1 spot higher, though.
The Houston Rockets here in my number 7 spot. And
okay.
Like I said, there are a few factors that are at play here and why Houston is in my 7th spot. I just think we've seen the flaw that could get them exposed and bounced in the playoffs. And 2, the East does factor in here. I just think the East is easier. That's why Cleveland and Detroit. Even though Houston, it's close between these teams, but Houston is probably a better team than both of them, but I just think it's less likely that they come out of the West. Again, I think teams have figured out Houston a little bit. I think that they have their elite skill, and that is the fact that they are so big that they can win the rebounding margin in such a big way. Their lack of a ball handler and a guard in that kind of stabilizing presence is going to get them in the playoffs, and I think I can just concretely say it now. There is just too big of a burden, I think, on Sengun and KD to run this offense. And they're good enough, but what that does is it stresses everybody else on this offense to really knock down their open shots. And when it's clicking, it's really effective. When Jabari Smith Jr. and Reed Shepherd are nails, or like a man is really doing his thing, they can be a really effective offense. But when that spacing deteriorates, their offense falls apart. And again, I just think there's maybe too much of a ball handling and playmaking burden on KD and Sengun that I just don't like. And I think when we get into the playoffs, it could get exposed in a big way. And I'm disappointed, man. I had some really big expectations. There were some really nasty narratives that have kind of spawned out of this with Kevin Durant and the player that he is. And I don't like that. I just think it's a fit thing with Houston. I still think they are elite in terms of the things they do, their athleticism, their size, their defense, what they can do on the glass. But I am seeing that flaw with them more recently, and I think teams are starting to figure them out. And I think that game plan is unfortunately going to cost them in the playoffs. There's just a lot of teams out west that I think are more complementary, that are better two-way teams that I have just grown to like more as the season has gone along. So I still like Houston, but they have fallen by a few spots in my contender rankings.
The KD narrative point is a very good one, and unfortunately this is predictable, but it did make me laugh. I saw a clip from our friends over at Player Choice the other day, and it was the boy Ron talking about if the Rockets fail in the playoffs, it's like, we're going to blame KD. Who else are we going to blame? You're going to blame Reed Shepherd? And I think it was our friend Mars who was just like, I don't know, man. I want to watch the game and see how it goes. It's this entire dynamic that there is in sports media, right? Where it's like best player on the team, if the team loses, has to be pre-assigned blame, which is just so silly. I saw another clip from Bomani Jones being like, if Matthew Stafford doesn't win the Super Bowl this year with this path, with this team, we can shut down Hall of Fame talk. It's going to be a massive failure. And then I saw somebody simply quote tweet it with, I don't know, some image of somebody being like, MS are always saying things so definitively. And I'm like, IDK, man, I think it depends. It really does depend, man. Context is so important. And it's if you're going to try to blame KD because he's the face of the Rockets, because he's obviously the all-time great, he's a new player on this team, point out to me how you think he is failing this team. In what way is KD not delivering exactly what you expected? 26 points, 5 assists per game, 63% true shooting, absolutely lethal pull-up shooting. He's doing all the KD stuff. If you thought at this point in his career he was going to be a primary ball handler, he was going to be an offensive engine, that's just on you, man. He hasn't been doing that, but he's still probably a top 10 player on the planet because his scoring game is so ridiculously efficient and he is so consistently able to produce 26, 27 points a game for you. So KD, damn good basketball player. I'm a little higher on the Rockets. I have them at number 5. They're a weird team and they have their weirdness that does concern me. Again, we come back to the half-court offense here where they've been below average and they've had some flaws, but they are still 4th in offensive rating. So they've been an elite offense. They're 6th in defensive rating. They're 4th in net rating. There's just very few teams that are that strong on both sides of the ball. I mean, top 6 on both sides. And they've always been a weird team to evaluate because, yeah, clearly they lack the sort of volume 3-point shooting. They lack the sort of like guard ball handling skill that you would like to see on a contender. But then they also make up for it in some crazy ways where they have a ball handling playmaking center like Şengün. They have the overall athleticism and size they have. They have a KD and his brilliant shot making on his own. And then they have like just this ridiculous edge on the offensive glass, which is totally unparalleled. They're the best offensive rebounding team in NBA history. Their edge on the offensive boards from last year, when they were already the best team in the league, has gotten like significantly more sizable. They're grabbing 40.7% of all possible offensive rebounds. Last year, that was 36.3%. So like they do so much to create extra possessions for themselves in that way. Like particularly valuable extra possessions, because when it's a second chance, it's likely to be a putback opportunity or a kick out to an open 3-point shooter. Second chances are worth more in terms of points per possession than first chances. They have this crazy unique formula, but some of their formula has also been compromised compared to last year because their 3-point volume has come down even further. And Fred VanVleet was so good at protecting the ball for this team last year. He was a flawed player. He was very up and down in some ways in terms of his scoring and is super reliant on his pull-up shooting, which wasn't like super consistent anyways. But his ability to be a primary ball handler and be a good playmaker and protect the basketball at a really high level was valuable for this team. They now have the second highest turnover percentage in the NBA. So turnovers have picked way up as they've put more of that burden on Şengün, on Amen, and that has diminished their value in the possession game a bit. Also, the double big look for them hasn't been quite as crushing as last year when they were just like destroying people. They were posting like plus 18 net ratings with Şengün and Adams together. This year, it's been more like plus 6, not as effective. So you know what the concerns are. It's, all right, is there enough shooting here? Is the spacing going to come back to bite us? Is our lack of ball handling, especially against a team like OKC that is going to be so physical and pressure the shit out of the ball, like even San Antonio, right? When you look out west, I mean, they've got super athletic guards who can pressure the rim a ton, and then they've got this 7'4" GOAT level defender with an 8-foot wingspan who can roam off of a number of guys on this team and just kind of ruin everything in the paint for you offensively. Like, yes, that stuff all concerns me. And that's why I've dropped the Rockets. You know, preseason, I would have had them in my top 4, as I did Cleveland. And now I have Houston down at 5. I do still think, though, there's a reason this team is as good as they are. And there's a reason this team is still, again, top 6 on both sides of the ball. They are unique with all the elite length they have, the athleticism they have. Defensively, what they're able to do, you know, I thought they just had an incredible defensive performance on Wemby. I think specifically in that matchup, they can give him a lot of trouble. They're the team that's like built to do it. They have that formula with a shit ton of wings and a bunch of length, and they can switch and they can throw a bunch of doubles at him and just kind of disrupt him physically in that way. So you can't deny what they can do on that side of the ball. And then offensively, what Şengün does bring you as this lead playmaker is significant. What KD can do as a scorer, I end up landing on them at number 5 because although I am also concerned about their half-court offense, like compared to a Detroit, they have been able to produce a lead offense overall because of these unique advantages they have. And they do have multiple guys who I think are very good offensive players, whereas I look at Detroit and I'm like, okay, it's just Cade. You know, there's just so much on his plate specifically. I get why you're dropping Houston. I've dropped Houston too. They're 5th in the West now, but I still have them 5th in the NBA because I would take them over any team in the East until we see the Celtics with Jason Tatum healthy. That's where I land on them. So let's get in to the top 5, Logan. You had Detroit in your 5 spot. I have Houston in my 5 spot. So correction, let's get in to the top 4. Who's in your 4 spot?
I have got the Minnesota Timberwolves here.
Same here,
I
buddy.
think the
Samesies.
Timberwolves could go on a Western Conference Finals run as currently constructed. They've got elite stability on both sides of the court because of their anchors, Anthony Edwards offensively and Rudy Gobert defensively. And I like what they've found with Baron J. Like I think that they found like a guy who can help them in the non-Gobert minutes or if Gobert is hurt because Naz Reid is so debilitating defensively. I still do think they need a guard for me to have more faith in them, and I really would explore that trade at the deadline. I think that's the biggest question about Minnesota the rest of this season. Not that they're completely, out lost at sea without a paddle. Like, DiVincenzo's been great, and I think DiVincenzo is a good point guard. He would be the guy that I turn to most, but Mike Conley clearly has his flaws, and Rob Dillingham looks borderline unplayable, unfortunately. But that's the big spot that I'm looking at for Minnesota. I like Conley and what he can do with his connective playmaking and his three-point shooting, but he has just regressed in terms of what he can do as an offensive creator. He's not as effective defensively anymore. And so, like, I really like Minnesota on both sides of the floor. They've got good depth. They've got good role players I like, and they've got two stars. And Julius Randle's having arguably maybe the best year of his career. I think Julius Randle's a big reason why I like Minnesota, too. Like, there's a lot going for Minnesota. And like I said, I'll reiterate that main point. I think they could go on a Western Conference Finals run. Again, it's currently constructed. For them to be in my top three in the West, for them to be a bona fide top-tier contender, though, I would need them to address that point guard spot. Just one more guy. That would make a big difference to me. I've seen a lot of trade rumors if it's Kobe White. The Timberwolves are so close, and they have expendable guys and tradable contracts that, like, I just would. You're so close right now. Not that the West is wide open or anything, right? I've got three teams in the West above them. But they could leapfrog a team in my 3 spot if they made a move like that. Like, I still look at it as a significant hindrance to this team and a reason why I'm not fully bought in on Minnesota, that if they did make a move like that, where if they improved at the guard spot, got somebody that could run this offense a little bit, that just was better two-way.
Yeah.
That brings that kind of total package and a little bit more of that offensive firepower. I'd really like them. But I like Minnesota. I think they found some buttons to push. I like Baron J. I meant to mention this stat when I brought him up earlier. He would be fourth, and this is a limited sample size, granted. We'll go with that. But he would be fourth in defensive field goal percentage differential inside 6 feet if he qualified. That's among centers.
That is a very small sample size. But he has
very,
played
very
well.
small sample size.
I mean, he got real minutes against the Spurs, and he was pretty good in that game.
I've been impressed. I've been impressed with what they've got out of Baron J. And considering what their defenses looked like with Naz Reid at the 5 spot off the bench, I think maybe they should explore a little bit more of that. But if it's taking one of these young wings, TSJ or Dillingham or Conley in your packaging and moving one of these guys to go and get another guard, do it. Don't even think about it. I would just do it. It's such a glaring need, I think, for Minnesota.
It totally is. It's funny. I feel like exactly the same about the Timberwolves as I did coming into the year. Maybe more so than any other team. Like, I look at the exact things I thought would be good about this team, the things I was worried about with this team, and it feels like, yeah, they've pretty much all played out that way. We knew coming into the year they really needed a point guard. They didn't address it. I was not an optimist that Rob Dillingham was going to be the guy who could fill that void. He hasn't been the guy who could fill that void. We knew that they needed a backup center. We knew that they needed to find a way to, like, try to replenish the Nickeil Alexander-Walker minutes, and they haven't really done either of those things. Baron J, encouraging minutes recently. He is still incredibly raw, though. I mean, there is just a size quotient with him where, like, he can be really impactful on the offensive glass, and he's a good rim protector already, and he runs the floor well for a big fella, but I don't know. Offensively, like, it's still far away. I don't know that we're getting playoff minutes out of Baron J. Like, he's just turned 19, was known to be a project guy. They just don't really have the personnel there.
I mean, I think it's more, yeah, I think it's head-based, but I think it might be matchup dependent as well, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if there's a playoff series that you can throw Baron J into this year where I'm confident, though. But we'll see, because we've really only started to see that uptick in minutes recently. He has a chance to prove more value as the year goes along. But even though they have that lack of a point guard, that question of backup center, losing a little bit of their depth, because that used to be such a strength for this team. And now with Conley's regression and losing Nah, their lineup versatility has gone down a level. Like, they really rely on 6 guys. It used to be like, you feel like, okay, we can mix and match. Do we want to go super defensive in terms of our backcourt and our wings? Do we want to get, like, Nah out there? Or do we want the shooting of DiVincenzo? Or if you look back a couple years, do we want, like, the stable second side playmaking and shooting of Conley? Or do we want to go Nas and Gobert together? Do we want to go Nas at the 5 for all offense? Right? I feel like they used to just have more options than they do right now as that roster has gotten thinner. But they're still really good. And I am just more comfortable with them than the Rockets now. I don't want to be weird phobic, but the Rockets are really weird, man. And I do worry about that half-court offense, whereas, like, The Timberwolves, with the combination of downhill pressure they get from Ant and Randall, and those guys' ability to create for others, and the fact that this is a very good three-point shooting team overall, and I know that because they have Rudy, they're going to be a top 10 defense. There's just a lot here that I feel I can bank on both sides of the ball that should translate well. They have a plus 10 net rating when their big three is on the floor, and they just check a lot of boxes. Ant is one of those guys, man, who I really do believe in. Like, he's playing his career best hoops by far, career high scoring volume, career best efficiency from everywhere at the rim, from mid-range, shooting the shit out of it from beyond the arc again. So he's taken a little level up from last year, like clearly a top 7 player on the planet, at least. And then they've got that combination of force, athleticism, shooting. They defend. That's where I trust them more than the Rockets. But then I look at them compared to the top 3. And if you compare them versus San Antonio, okay, spoiler, that's who's in my 3 spot. Minnesota is in the tier with the Spurs. And if you were going to say, okay, going into a 7-game series, those two teams, it would be like a toss-up to me. And I think the Rockets also are on a very, very similar level. The reason I wind up with San Antonio at 3 and the Timberwolves at 4 and the Rockets at 5 is when I think about your upside, which really means your ability to challenge OKC, maybe beat them in a series, okay? Because the measuring stick is who's the best team in the league. The Spurs have a superpower with their defense, and particularly what Wemby does for that defense. They can break an offense in a way that is truly exceptional. Nobody can do other than OKC. I look at the Nuggets, who are very clearly in my 2 spot, another spoiler, but their superpower is we have the best offense in the NBA. A superpower, something that can like change the game in a way nobody else can do, is pretty much required to beat a team as great as OKC, in my opinion. I look at the Rockets and the Timberwolves and I'm like, yes, they're both very good. They're both quite good on both sides of the ball, but they don't have the superpower. And there are specific players who I just worry about in those matchups. Like we said, with Houston against OKC, I worry about the lack of ball handling being exploited badly. With Minnesota, I really worry about what Julius Randle's offense looks like against OKC with, how brutal his series was against them last year and the fact that he can't mismatch attack against them. He can't comfortably handle against them. Like, he just melted down. And so ultimately, I think it's just a bad matchup for Minnesota and Houston both. OKC is in the sense that they can't threaten them like a San Antonio can, which is why even though I don't think San Antonio is a fundamentally better team than Minnesota or Houston, I think they are a scarier team to the best of the best, which is why they belong a little higher in my contender rankings. So, do you agree, Logan? You have the Spurs at number 3?
Well said. Yes, I agree with that fundamental point. And I just also, I had to put the Spurs at number 3 due to their commitment to the bald community. Like,
crazy, bro.
I mean,
crazy representation.
This is my squad.
Yeah, they have to be. I gotta say, I don't like bald Wemby. I think he's a beautiful man.
I think it's inspiring. I think they're all beautiful. I think Keldon and Wemby are so
maybe I should shut my
now.
white ass
They're
up
perfect.
and listen and learn, because what the fuck do I know about the bald community? Jack shit. So, Logan, I'm sorry. It's your story. It's your voice. Please proceed.
Dude, I can't believe how good the Spurs are this season already. Like, I was a Spurs advocate coming into the year. I thought that there was a potential for this team to be like top 5. Like, that was my expectation at the apex, is like maybe San Antonio checks all my boxes. The young guys look good. They're, everything. Wemby, takes a leap. Like, maybe they could crack my top 5 at the end of the year. This team is on pace for 56 wins right now. Like, they are 8th in offensive rating. They are 3rd in defensive rating. They are 5th in net rating. And I just love the abundance of athleticism that they possess, the abundance of creation that they have, and the defense that they consistently trot out every night. Now, I am trying to discern how much of this is like a young team being really bought in defensively with all of these athletes with an all-time defensive presence in Wemby, and how that is actually going to translate into the playoffs. I do buy into it. I think they're great. What blows me away mostly about them is the rebounding percentage. They are number 1 in defensive rebounding percentage. They are so good at ending possessions. They are also 3rd in opponent fast break points per game. I love how this team flies up and down the court. They are so good in transition on both sides of the floor. And their depth, I've just been impressed by. Fox is a really stabilizing force for these young guards. And I don't know what they're going to do. Honestly, I think the most interesting thing about this Spurs team is what they're going to do with these guard minutes when it comes time for the playoffs. Like, me personally, I would stagger Fox and Harper almost completely, and I would let them dictate their own units, and I would pop Castle in and split time with both of them. I don't know if you give Castle his own burn just because you need all three of those guys to get a bunch of minutes because they're some of your best players. But that's probably the thing that I'm most intrigued by, just how much burn they each give. Like, I think Fox is at his best when he's by himself. I think Harper is at his best when he's by himself. And then Castle can complement them, but that's more dependent on, how much his shot is falling. He's always going to bring you that athleticism and that defense and stuff like that. But the guys around them I've been impressed with. Keldon Johnson being one of the best guys off the bench in basketball. Bona fide six-man of the year contender. Devin Vassell is a flamethrower when he gets on the court and can just blister teams from behind the arc. He's awesome to have on the wings as a 3-and-D guy. I shit on Harrison Barnes. He's actually a great human being. He always inspires any community that he goes into. I'll always respect the Black Falcon for that. Yep. He's also a damn good basketball player and stabilizing veteran for this team. The same can be said for Luke Cornett. Like, that guy is awesome off the bench. The depth has impressed me so much. The young guys are way better than I expected them to be, and they are dogged defensively. The only real questions, again, I have, are the young guards this good in the playoffs? What stagger do they go with when we get to playoff time? In the shooting? The shooting is their potentially fatal flaw if we're going to point to something. They are at 34.9% on the year. That's 22nd in basketball. But a lot of these unalienable things I am bought into with the Spurs. The defense, Wemby being that kind of anchor, getting 48 minutes of great center play, the collection of athleticism, and, of course, those beautiful shining bald heads. Like, I couldn't have them lower than 3. It just gives them so much aura on the court. They're so intimidating. Like, they're just... Of course. They're scary.
Yeah, it's
they're
like
freakish.
You're playing against a bunch of monks who, of course, Wemby knows well and he's trained from. And it's also like you're playing against KG, who Wemby knows well and is trained from. Don't put your hat back on, Logan. Don't put your Guardian cap on. Stay bald, stay proud. I have the Spurs here, number 3. They have been crazy impressive, like you said. I mean, they have a plus 11 net rating in Wemby's minutes, just playing elite basketball when he's out there, and significantly still winning the non-Wemby minutes. They're a plus 1 net team when he's off, so that's a big deal. And as I was saying, I think a huge part of your contender status is your ability to beat the best of the best. And so we look at the 2 teams above you, particularly OKC. San Antonio has a formula to beat them that is more proven than anyone this year. They did it 3 times. Now, OKC got them back in the last meeting, as you would expect. OKC is clearly the better team than the Spurs. They would clearly be the favorite in that head-to-head matchup. But they do pose a unique matchup problem with what they can do defensively. Wemby's defense is unparalleled in the NBA right now. The level of rim deterrence, rim protection you're getting from him, I mean, he causes opposing players' brains to melt more than anybody I've ever seen, just with his sheer presence. When he's on the court, the Spurs have a -8 relative defense. That's all-time great defense they're playing when he's on the floor. Ridiculous. Like, not that far off from what OKC is doing right now, which is like GOAT tier. So, again, he can break any offense in a way that only OKC's defense can outside of him. And then they also have really good point of attack defense from their wings, who are athletic and pressure the ball and big and are locked in. And offensively, they've got these athletic downhill guards. They've got good wing depth. They've got a number of good spot up shooters when you look at the wings. And what Wemby does for an offense is also really significant. He still definitely has some polishing that he needs to do. He's not at his offensive ceiling for sure, but the shooting and finishing gravity he has. I mean, his gravity, just when you think about like him rising up for a 15-footer or whatever, the number of times that like teams will try to double outright just to get an actual contest, because you need 4 hands, you need 2 bodies in his face to actually have any effect. And then he's gotten pretty good at like making a late pass out in those situations and essentially faking the shot and then finding a teammate. So he just does a lot that draws the defense towards him. His gravity as a roller is nuts. I mean, every time he gets into the paint, because it's just a combination of overwhelming size around the basket, you got to dedicate so many bodies to him. And then the shot making he has at his size, super impactful on that side of the ball too. So their ceiling, crazy high, because they can dominate defensively. And when Wemby is dominating offensively and they're making their catch and shoot threes, like, yeah, they are absolutely insane. But they are also very vulnerable, because I do think what Wemby still has to figure out offensively is how does he deal with teams that are doubling him a ton, that are playing him super physically? Can he be as effective against those looks, because he's had some struggles this year? And again, Houston was a team we just saw pull it off. We've seen it from a number of teams. Phoenix early in the year had the best performance we've seen against Wemby. So that's significant. The Timberwolves have split against the Spurs when Wemby's been on the court. So again, like, those series to me would probably be toss-ups. It's just the Spurs have the higher upside because of the matchup problem they pose for like an OKC. But I do have some concerns about this Spurs offense, particularly what you're saying, dude. I worry about teams daring Castle and Harper to make perimeter shots, and I worry about their ability to do that because they're just bad jump shooters, like flat out. And if you look at the stretch San Antonio's been on since they beat OKC on Christmas, where they have been very pedestrian, 7-7, all their issues have been offensive. They're 26th in offensive rating in that span. And Castle and Harper are attempting 7 threes a game and making under 24% of them. And as a team, they're 23rd in three-point percentage in that span. So there's a ton on Wemby's plate offensively. And I think as good as he is, I have some concerns about just his composure against those sort of aggressive doubles over a series. And then I worry about the shooters around him holding teams accountable. The guard rotation, I agree with you, is something to figure out. They've actually lost the Fox Castle minutes this year when their two guards have been out there together, the two best guards. They've struggled, and I do think there's a lack of three-point shooting in those groups. So I have my concerns. But overall, the defense is nuts. The offense is still top 10. It is a fallible offense, but for all the reasons that we've laid out, I would still take them over everybody other than Denver and OKC. Logan, do you have any breaking news? Or is it Denver in the 2 spot for you?
I do not, but, I mean, Denver has impressed me while Jokic has been out. Like, that is undeniable. The 2026 Nuggets without Jokic are 7-5. That's a 58.3 win percentage. From 2019 to 2025 without Jokic, they were 14-24. That's a 36.8 win percentage. And I just think that speaks to the depth and the improvement that they have made basically across the board. With Valanciunas, with bringing Bruce Brown back, with getting Tim Hardaway Jr. in here. But also it's been the play of guys like Jamal Murray, who this is the best regular season I think Jamal Murray has ever played. He is unbelievable.
By so far, dude. He is
so locked in. This stretch, he's given you 29, 4-9 on 50, 43, 92 splits, 62% true shooting. Also been locked in during the stretch is Peyton Watson, giving you a blistering 22, 6-3 on 50, 42, 71 splits, 59.6% true shooting. This team has been so good consistently in the relief of Jokic. And, like, they're not undefeated. They're not, running the table against teams or anything, but it is such a step up from the teams that they have had without Jokic over the past 6 seasons. Like, they are just better around him. Now, I think they match up against any other team in the West. I'm not 50-50 with, like, Denver, OKC, but I do look at OKC as more vulnerable than I did coming into the season, and I look at Denver as more of a challenge to OKC in a hypothetical matchup this season. So they are definitely closer to on even footing than I was at the beginning of this season. Because Jamal's better, the depth is massively improved. Jokic is also having a career season. You assume that he's going to be way better when he gets back, right? Cam Johnson's looked better. So all of that. My question about Denver kind of going into the playoffs is really 2 things. Do they have any positions of need going into the playoffs? Should they be a big-time buyer at the deadline? Like, when you feel like you are the second-best team in the league, is there anything you can do to get better at the deadline? And the guy I'm looking at is, unfortunately, Christian Brown. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like you have to be really worried about his shooting woes. And, like, if Peyton Watson just plays like this the rest of the year, you got to play him. You got to give him major burn. But, Christian Brown has been imperative to this lineup recently. I'm going to ask I want to hear your overall takes about Denver, of course. Really quick about Brown. Do you look at him as imperative to this rotation with the improvements that they have made? And 2, like, I don't know, man. Do you even give the guy burn? Do you look to shop him? Like, I don't know, man. I really liked Christian. This has been a really, really disappointing season from him.
Well, I mean, he hasn't played very much. I think that context is important. I think what's more relevant in terms of, like, how you're weighting his stock is just the emergence of Peyton Watson and how good he's been. But I don't think Christian Braun is going anywhere. I don't think he can be traded this year because they extended him like right before this season. So I don't think he's trade eligible. And they made a big commitment to him. I mean, they gave him $125 million. So Christian Braun is going to stay around. He's absolutely going to be in the rotation. Peyton Watson has been playing really well, but I don't think there's anything but positives to take away from this. It's like amazing. Okay, so now we have a guy who, like Brown in Peyton Watson, can be like a point of attack defender for us who's pretty good. And I also just think like Watson is a very good team defender. Like he's a really good shot blocking wing. Okay, well if he does, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, they can run into that problem when they get there, I guess. But again, they already paid Christian Braun. So yeah, it's going to have to be a trade. There's no world in which he just kind of quietly fades out of the rotation for this team. But they're going to have to pay Watson. That's for sure. He's really good. He's been a revelation for this team. We already knew Tim Hardaway Jr. was going to be huge in terms of giving them a different look where it's like, all right, if teams are roaming off of Brown, helping off of him aggressively, he can't knock down catch and shoot threes. Now we got a weapon who can knock down those looks. And now also in Watson, they have a guy who has been shooting better than Brown this year and is a good defensive player. I just think the Nuggets have made me feel better about them in every possible way. I think they are absolutely a tier above everybody other than OKC and probably closer to OKC than I would have had them before the year. The fact that they are 29-15 with Jokic missing 12 games, Gordon missing 23 games, Cam Johnson missing 16 games, Christian Braun missing 30 games. Like, their injury luck has been as bad as anybody in the NBA. They've gotten railed. They've gotten crushed. And they're still in great position in terms of seeding and just cemented their status as the second best team in the NBA. And they're 7-5 without Jokic, as you mentioned. That's against a lighter stretch of the schedule. They've got some cupcake wins in there, but they've also got a couple of legitimately good wins. And I don't know if, like, before this year, you would have expected the Nuggets to win just about any games without Jokic on the floor. Like when this team was posting -10 net ratings with Jokic off year after year, the fact that they have won the Murray non-Jokic minutes this year is significant. The fact they have a 119 offensive rating with Murray on, Jokic off is significant. And you just can't give enough props to the guy, Jamal Murray, for the leap that he's taken when it felt like he had stagnated. And the fact that in 2020 and 2023, he was this playoff riser, like he wasn't able to replicate that in either of the last two postseasons. And now he's just putting together a flat out, like all NBA caliber regular season. Coming into this year, I was thinking, yeah, Jamal is the Nuggets' second best player, but the gap between him and Aaron Gordon isn't very big. With Gordon's improvements and again, Murray's stagnation, now he's putting together a stretch of top 20 level play for 3 months straight. He's never done that. Not even in his playoff heaters has he sustained this level for this long. So the guy's just improved. I mean, he is on pace to be the only player in NBA history to average 26 points and 7 assists per game in a season with fewer than 2.5 turnovers per game. Like, he's really good at protecting the basketball. He's improved as a playmaker. All the while, he's been the second best pull-up shooter in basketball at volume, only to Steph Curry. Unbelievable season from the guy. And as I mentioned, he's done a good job of piloting those units without Jokic to pretty good results, but he's also the perfect complement to Jokic. And when they play together, the Nuggets have a 132 offensive rating, Logan. They were on pace to have the best relative offensive rating in the play-by-play era before Jokic got hurt. They're still the number one offense in the NBA, but like that's the level they were playing at. All-time offense. They're almost plus 15 net when Jokic and Murray play together. And we've only seen like 229 minutes of these three together because they've had so many injuries. Jokic, Murray, and Gordon plus 23.5 net rating when they share the floor. So there's a lot of indicators that when we see this team at full strength, it will be like clearly the best Nuggets team that we have seen. Jokic still playing his best basketball before he got hurt. Like he was on pace to have a career season. We know how high that bar is. It was 30, 12, and 11 on 71% true shooting. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Murray playing by far his best basketball ever. Gordon playing his best basketball ever. Bench even better than anticipated when we thought this is going to be the best bench of the Jokic era. But it's not just THJ and Valanciunas, who we knew would be big ads, filling important holes on this team. Peyton Watson blossoming. I'm 14 points per game on 60% true shooting from him. Phenomenal. Spencer Jones is just like super solid. Like he's had to start a lot of this year and he's a versatile defender and he's shooting well from deep. And like, I just think he's a pretty smart basketball player. Denver's been incredible. And we know that they have the path to beat OKC that clearly to me surpasses anybody else, because it's like, yeah, you've got an all-time great defense. Well, we've got an all-time great offense. And I do think OKC's defense is literal GOAT level. And I do think OKC's offense is also elite, whereas Denver's defense, I mean, it's been bad overall this year. I think when they're engaged, it's pretty average. I'm still going to take the OKC formula for all the reasons we've talked about, but Denver's got a real chance. Like, I don't think you can write that off with all the improvements they've made, with Jokic and Murray playing at the level they're at. Like, it could just be a situation of perfect offense beats perfect defense. That's not what I'm predicting, but that's the path they have that nobody else does.
Certainly, I agree. And if OKC was missing any imperative piece to their formula, I think that would favor Denver in a pretty big way. If it was Hartenstein, if it was Dub, if it was any of the core guys. And I think people collectively soured a little bit too much probably on OKC when they had their down stretch. And in retrospect, I thought your argument about OKC really made me think about how it was kind of just this perfect storm in a lot of ways of bad luck coming together for OKC, because not only did J-Dub come back and he wasn't right, but Isaiah Hartenstein was out and he missed some games. And we mentioned this when OKC hit their skid. They went 6-6 during a stretch from December into January. They were number 22 in rebounds. They were tied 23rd in offensive rebounds per game. And they were 24th in three-point percentage. And I just think that was the worst that we're going to see OKC play basketball all year long, and we shouldn't blow that 1 month stretch out of proportion. Now, we did see the flaws. We saw what could get them, but I think it was kind of an extreme version of everything. It was the bad shooting. It was no Hartenstein. The team regressed in terms of rebounding. Dub was bad. Like, I just think we have seen the Thunder put together better stretches that are more emblematic of the team that they actually are, where they were an elite shooting team. Now, I don't think they're one of the best, but I think they can generate a high enough shot quality and be a good shooting team in the playoffs. I think J-Dub and A.J. Mitchell are going – well, A.J. Mitchell's been great, I think, this year, but I think Dub is going to be better by the time we get to the playoffs. And I don't want to bury the lead here with OKC, but as we always mention, this is a historically great, immaculate defense. They are number one in defensive rating. 105.2. They're 3.3 points still better than the number 2 ranked Detroit Pistons. They're third in steals per game, fourth in blocks per game, first in opponent points per game in the paint, first in opponent points per game on the fast break, second in opponent points per game off turnovers. They're just an elite defense. And they've got 2 big men in the top 3 of defensive field goal differential inside 6 feet. Hartenstein's number 1 in the league at 16.2%, and Holmgren is number 3 in the league at 15.3%. It would just take somebody probably getting hurt or a really ugly stretch of basketball from OKC heading into the playoffs or something catastrophic to move me off of them from being in my number 1 spot. I just believe in OKC. Again, I think the margins between them and Denver have shrunk. I think they're closer to one another than I thought last time we did this, when we did our early season check-in. And I think Denver's a real potent force against them, but I still favor OKC. I think they're still more talented.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to with the resume they have over the last year and a half now. And I do think they're better this year than last. Obviously, they got off to this historic 24-1 start, and then you mentioned they hit the skid. And I do think as a basketball team, they are somewhere in between where they were at their absolute best and obviously where they were at their worst. I think, like you said, that was kind of the perfect storm of things going wrong for them. It did show their vulnerabilities as a basketball team, but overall, yeah, there's a reason this team is 37-8, and they're on pace to have the second best net rating in NBA history, surpassing what they did last year, which was the second best at the time. They are a juggernaut, and obviously it all starts with this truly historically dominant defense. Unfortunately, Logan, they are now in possession of only the second best relative defensive rating in NBA history. They had the best for a while. Now they are trailing the 64 Celtics, but still absolutely GOAT level defense, and they have an ability to make every single offense in the NBA break down in a way that is unparalleled in recent NBA history. We saw them do it throughout last year's playoffs, where they had the best adjusted relative defensive rating that we had seen since, I believe, also the 64 Celtics, just in terms of how much they held the opposing offenses below their normal level in that playoff run. So it's a complete superpower. It's the most dominant unit in the NBA. And then again, they do have a very good offense that overall gives you elite production. Like, I have some of the concerns about the lack of creation around Shai and the fact that he plays with a bunch of guys who are very reliant on their spot up shooting specifically because they're not really ball handlers and they're not above the rim athletes and play finishers in that way. And yet you look up and it's like, oh, they're a 93rd percentile half court offense again, and they're 4th in offensive rating again. And it's like, that's the concern that we're going to talk about with this team. And I'm not saying that it's not a concern, but I do think it is important to keep in perspective. Last year, my take was, okay, everything went as wrong as it could pretty much for this team offensively, right? Super up and down, J-Dub and Chet. Really bad three-point shooting postseason, and they still won the title with their half-court offense not being nearly as good as it has been over the last 2 regular seasons. This year, with the emergence of A.J. Mitchell, with Shai being even better, I think they're going to be a better half-court offense in the playoffs. I think that makes them a more formidable, greater team than they were even last year when they won the title, which, by the way, they have to be because they beat Denver last year, and I don't think that was your typical 7-game series in the sense that, like, OKC won a couple blowouts. Every game Denver won was right down to the wire. Like, I do think OKC was clearly the better team overall over the course of that series. But also, Denver has gotten way better from last year. So OKC, to me, cannot have the same pitfalls they had in the playoffs last year and feel like, oh, we're going to win that series again. Because, I don't know, you're probably not. But they do have an ability to make even the best offensive players, guards, wings, bigs, all of them struggle in a way that nobody else can do. And then they create margin like nobody else, right? They've got the best turnover margin in the NBA. They've got the best transition margin in the NBA. This is why their floor is so high. This is why they go into so many games with a baked-in advantage. Their depth is really good. And Shai, I know we glaze him a lot. People get annoyed, but my God, dude, I mean, he is just stupidly good at the game of basketball. You can look at the most simple stat, and it's not even a good measure of efficiency because it lacks context. But the fact that we're talking about a point guard who is scoring 32 points per game with a raw field goal percentage of 55.5, like, are you kidding me, dude? And then, yeah, you contextualize the numbers, and they're still every bit as incredible. He's over 60% on twos. He's 40% from three. He's 89% from the line, 67% true shooting overall, while he only turns the ball over 2 times a game. I mean, just unparalleled efficiency as an offensive player and as a scoring guard that we're getting out of him. So what he does to carry an offense is so remarkable. And I know we've talked about all this stuff. That's why ultimately I just think OKC has the safest formula. All-time great GOAT level defense. All-time great offensive player who can lift that crew so much. Overall, I still think better depth than any of these other top-tier contenders that we're looking at, and the margin they create that is really unique. But Denver could definitely beat them. Like, you just can't deny that. You get a nuclear Murray and Jokic series and a good spot-up shooting series, and OKC goes cold. Ultimately, though, the Thunder's formula is so proven, and I feel more confident in their ability to legitimately make Denver's incredible offense uncomfortable and take a chunk out of their production than I do in Denver's ability to meaningfully make OKC's offense uncomfortable. So they remain my favorite. No breaking news there. Denver, though, is shrinking that gap because there's just so much to be encouraged about with them. And the really interesting thing about OKC that I want to touch on real quick before we wrap up is just this developing trend of them being better without J-Dub. And there's some context here. Like, early this year, they had a pretty light stretch of the schedule, very light stretch of the schedule when J-Dub was out. That's worth mentioning. And also, obviously, I just want to say this up front. I think J-Dub is a really, really good basketball player. I think he was vitally important in Game 7 against Denver for them, in the Minnesota series, what he did in Games 4 and 5 against Indiana in the finals. Like, J-Dub was their second best player in an NBA title run last year. I want to get all that out up front. I'm not trying to have some crazy, oh my God, the Thunder are better without J-Dub, period, point blank. J-Dub's overrated, whatever. That's not what I'm getting at with this take. It's just kind of crazy when you look at the sample size we have. And since last season, just looking at the regular season, OKC is 33-1 without J-Dub. They're 72-21 with him. They're still great with him, but they're 33-1 without him. Shai on the court has a plus 20.6 net rating without J-Dub. They play like by far the greatest team in NBA history when Shai is out there without J-Dub. When Shai and J-Dub play together, plus 12.6 net rating. And this year, they're 17-7 with him, whereas they've only lost 1 game without him. And I do think J-Dub in some ways has hurt their offense, just because I think Shai is so ridiculously good that oftentimes the best approach is like put the ball in his hands as much as possible, and he's just going to create the most efficient team offense. Whereas a guy like J-Dub, who can settle for a tougher shot diet, at times can kind of take you out of rhythm offensively and just make you less potent on that side of the ball than you would be with the ball in Shai's hands all the time. Ultimately, I think they need other ball handlers for a deep playoff run to release some pressure from Shai. What J-Dub does defensively is incredible, and he's just a really, really good all-around basketball player. But I have to say, it's at least worth noting. I mean, more than anything, it's just a credit to Shai and the ridiculous stuff he can do out there without J-Dub and how incredible OKC's been with him. And just like, hey, put a bunch of kick-ass defenders around him. Shai will make you an elite offense. It'll make you a historically dominant basketball team. But it's going to be an interesting year from J-Dub. I think he's got a lot to prove, even though, yeah, the guy scored 40 in a finals game last year. Again, the bar has gotten higher. And what J-Dub did in games 1 through 6 against Denver, absolutely brutal offensively. And I think Chet has something to prove this year, right? Like, I kind of penciled in X amount of improvement from Chet this year, and I actually think Chet has gotten better offensively. I also still think he's looked uncomfortable in certain matchups against really good defenses, particularly San Antonio. He's really struggled in that matchup. So, again, OKC is the favorite, but I also don't think we can just take for granted, like I was kind of inclined to coming into the year, J-Dub, Chet, they will be better in the playoffs this time around. That's not a sure thing. So I still think OKC is better because Shai is better. The defense is every bit as great. AJ Mitchell is a really big find for them, and he's been awesome. But yeah, I'm probably looking at really J-Dub, and I'm like, all right, prove something down the stretch this year, because it's just very interesting. At the least, it's very interesting how exceptional they have been in his absence.
It is. I'm optimistic still about Dub. I'm disappointed that his shot diet hasn't gotten more efficient, that he still doesn't get all the way downhill. I still don't think he creates the best shot quality for himself.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, can just take the offense out of rhythm. But I also do, I don't know, I give him a little bit of grace just because he is working his way back from injury. And like, I know he's been back for a while now, but
now he's hurt again. But yeah, no, I agree. I think all that context is important, right? Like, he didn't have 3 months to play himself into rhythm. Totally agree with you there. That's why I'm not trying to make some big picture point about
I still think
J-Dub.
he's very, very important and imperative to this championship recipe that OKC has. But you do expect more from him, and he's got to be better if this team wants to win a championship. But I still do look at OKC as the favorite. And again, I don't want to bury that lead either. Shai's the man. Shai's just unstoppable.
Yeah, more so than, again, any big picture criticism about J-Dub and how he fits with this team or anything. Like, that's not what I'm trying to get at. I think you hit on it. He has to be better. That's really the point to take away from their underwhelming play with him and their exceptional play without him. That's point one. Point two is what purely Shai ball offensively and this defense can do for you and how great a team is, just based off of that. So, yeah, shout out to OKC, man. They are a dominant basketball team. Can't wait to see Denver with all their guys out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm telling you, though, man, if you ask me, okay, out of these 10 teams, who are you most excited to see play basketball in the remainder of the season? Denver's a good shout. But the Jason Tatum Celtics, Logan, I could not be higher on them. So there you have it, folks. An updated top 10 contender rankings. Little bit of Laker hate for you. Little bit of Knick hate. Lots of Thunder Nuggets love. Just how we butter our bread here at Nerd Sesh. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. I apologize that my camera was off if you wanted to look at my ugly mug for the end of the episode. And I apologize that I didn't have my beautiful, shining, normal lighting setup and all that and super HD, sexy camera quality. Obviously, I'm on the road. I'm in New York right now doing actually some fun content shoots for House of Highlights. So whenever those videos come out, stay tuned. I'll make sure to promote them. And hopefully it's a worthwhile trade-off. I definitely think it was. I had a lot of fun. So that's coming down the line, but for now, you guys know where to find us. All of our full episodes on YouTube. You can find all of our NBA stuff there. And of course, our NFL content. We previewed the conference title games that are coming up earlier in this week, and we talked about the Sean McDermott news. Sunday night, we will have a reaction stream, of course, to all of the NFL action, those two remaining games, as we seek to establish our Super Bowl matchup. And you can listen to those episodes across all audio platforms. You can follow us across social, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and of course, our daily trivia content. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Logan Camden.
I have been Carson Breber.
What the hell? That wasn't a joke at all. I didn't mean to do that at all. But this was Nerd Sesh.